The neural dampener bit into Marcus Kane's skull like frozen claws, each pulse designed to strip away his humanity piece by piece. Commander Lyra Voss stood before him in the sterile interrogation chamber, her violet eyes burning with barely contained fury. The hegemony's most feared interrogator had never failed to break a prisoner until now. 3 days, she hissed, her serpentine features twisted with frustration. 3 days of enhanced interrogation protocols, and you still refuse to reveal Earth's defense codes. Marcus lifted his head, blood trickling from his nose. The restraints had cut deep grooves into his wrists, but his eyes remained defiant. I told you, sweetheart. Those codes died with me the moment I was captured. Lyra's scaled hand struck his face with inhuman speed, the impact reverberating through the chamber. Do not mock me, human. Your species' arrogance will be your downfall. Marcus's voice was steady despite the pain. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like one human has already brought down your entire operation. The words hit their mark. Lyra's composure cracked for just a moment, revealing the desperation beneath. The hegemony's invasion fleet had been decimated in the Sol system not by superior firepower, but by a single human's tactical brilliance. Marcus Kane, former admiral of the Terran Defense Force, had orchestrated the impossible victory before his capture. You think yourself clever, Lyra said, circling him like a predator. But I have ways of extracting information that even your enhanced physiology cannot resist. She activated a neural interface, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. The chamber filled with a low hum as bioscanners emerged from the walls, their sensors focusing on Marcus's body. This was the hegemony's most advanced interrogation technology, a direct neural interface that could rewrite memory, alter perception, and break even the strongest will. The harmony field, Lyra explained, her voice taking on an almost seductive quality. It will synchronize our neural patterns, allowing me to experience your memories firsthand. But more importantly, it will allow me to influence your responses. Marcus felt the field take hold, a warm sensation spreading through his mind. But something was wrong. The readings on Lyra's displays flickered, showing anomalous patterns. She frowned, adjusting the settings. Curious, she murmured, your neural architecture is unusual. Marcus smiled grimly. That's what happens when you volunteer for experimental neural enhancement. The Terran military wanted soldiers who could think faster, react quicker, resist mental intrusion. They got more than they bargained for. The field intensified, and suddenly Lyra gasped. Eyes widened as she felt something she'd never experienced before, a connection that flowed both ways. The interrogation had become a neural dance, and Marcus was leading. What did you do? She demanded, but her voice lacked its earlier authority. I didn't do anything, Marcus replied, his restraints beginning to spark and malfunction. You just opened a direct link to a human mind enhanced beyond your comprehension. Did you really think we'd go to war without upgrading our defenses? Lyra tried to sever the connection, but the field held firm. She could feel Marcus's thoughts, his memories, his tactical genius, but more disturbing was what she sensed about herself. Through his enhanced perception, she saw her own doubts, her hidden fears, the loneliness that came from being the hegemony's perfect weapon. This is impossible, she whispered. Is it? Marcus stood, the restraints falling away like melted wax. You wanted to punish me, Commander. You wanted to break me. But you've just discovered something your species never understood about humans. We adapt. We overcome. And sometimes we turn the tables. The interrogation chamber's system screamed warnings as the neural field destabilized. Lyra Voss staggered backward, her hands pressed against her temples as foreign sensations flooded her consciousness. Marcus Kane's enhanced mind was rewriting the very foundations of their connection, turning her own weapon against her. You're killing yourself, she gasped, watching his vital signs spike beyond survivable levels. The neural feedback will burn out your brain. Marcus approached her slowly, his movements fluid despite the chaos raging in his neural pathways. That's where you're wrong, Commander. Human brains don't burn out, they evolve. The truth hit her like a physical blow. The Terran Enhancement Program hadn't just created better soldiers. D had created a new form of consciousness. Mind was adapting to the neural interface in real time, not just resisting her intrusion, but absorbing and redirecting it. Impossible, Lyra breathed, but even as she spoke, she felt her own mental defenses crumbling. The cold discipline that had made her the hegemony's most feared interrogator was melting away, replaced by something far more dangerous: curiosity through the neural link. She experienced Marcus's memories of Earth, not the sterile intelligence. Reports she'd studied, but the raw emotional reality of a world worth dying for. She felt his love for blue skies and ocean waves, his loyalty to friends who'd trusted him with their lives, his grief for the billions the hegemony had already slaughtered. "Stop this," she commanded, but her voice cracked with uncertainty. "Not doing anything," Marcus replied, his hand reaching toward her face. "This is what happens when you try to break someone who's already been broken and rebuilt. You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our technology or our tactics. It's our capacity to transform pain into purpose." The neural field pulsed, and Lyra felt her own carefully suppressed memories surfacing. Her childhood on. The wasteland planet of Korath, where the hegemony's genetic experiments had stripped away her species' natural empathy. The first time she'd killed. The way her handlers had praised her for feeling nothing. The slow realization that her greatest strength was also her greatest weakness. "You're showing me weakness," she said, but her resistance was weakening. "I'm showing you truth," Marcus corrected. "The hegemony made you into a weapon, but they couldn't erase what you were born to be. You're not a monster, Lyra. You're a victim." Use of her name, spoken with such unexpected gentleness, shattered something inside her. For the first time in decades, Lyra Voss felt tears on her cheeks. The neural link carried Marcus's compassion directly into her consciousness, and she couldn't block it out. "I've killed thousands," she whispered. "Why have I?" Marcus replied. "The difference is, I chose to kill to protect. You're programmed to kill, to conquer. But programming can be rewritten." He cupped her face in his hands, and the neural field intensified. Lyra felt his fingers tracing her scaled features with wonder rather than revulsion. Through the link, she experienced how he saw her not as the hegemony's perfect weapon, but as a being capable of redemption. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Because that's what humans do," Marcus said. "We see potential where others see only problems. We believe in second chances and the possibility of change. It's what makes us dangerous to empires like yours." The interrogation chamber's alarms fell silent as the neural field stabilized. What had begun as a tool of torture had become something else entirely, a bridge between two minds. Lyra felt her carefully constructed identity dissolving, replaced by something she'd never dared to hope for. "Hegemony will never accept this," she said. "Then we'll have to make them," Marcus replied. "But first, you need to choose. Are you going to remain their weapon? Or are you going to become something more?" Lyra looked into his eyes, seeing her own reflection transformed by the neural link. For the first time in her life, she had a choice and the strength to make it. The neural bond had fundamentally altered them both. Lyra Voss found herself caught between two realities: the cold efficiency of her hegemony conditioning and the warm chaos of human emotion that Marcus Kane's enhanced mind had awakened in her. The interrogation chamber had become a sanctuary, its monitoring systems disabled by the neural feedback. "Your fleet commanders will notice the communication blackout soon," Lyra said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar tremor. She stood at the chamber's sealed viewport, watching the distant stars. "They'll send reinforcements." Marcus moved behind her, his presence both comforting and terrifying. Through their neural link, she felt his tactical mind analyzing their situation, calculating possibilities and probabilities with inhuman speed. But beneath the cold logic, she sensed something else, a protective instinct that made her breath catch. "Let them come," he said simply. "I'll find a very different situation than they expect." "You don't understand." Lyra turned to face him, her violet eyes wide with something that might have been fear. "I'm not just an interrogator. I'm a weapon, Marcus. Genetically modified, psychologically conditioned, neurally enhanced. I was designed to be the perfect killer. I know, Marcus replied. I can feel it through the link. Every modification, every neural pathway rewired to remove empathy and enhance lethality. But I can also feel what they couldn't erase: your original self, buried beneath decades of conditioning. A neural field pulsed gently around them, maintaining their connection. Lyra felt Marcus's consciousness touch the darkest corners of her mind, the places where her true memories lay hidden. She expected disgust, revulsion, rejection. Instead, she felt understanding. They took a child, Marcus said, his voice heavy, with controlled anger. Little girl who loved the sound of rain on metal and dreamed of growing things in the desert. They turned her into a weapon, but they couldn't kill her completely. That child died a long time ago, Lyra protested. But even as she spoke, she felt the walls she'd built around those memories beginning to crack. No, Marcus stepped closer, his hand reaching toward her. She's still there. I can feel her crying for the rain she'll never see again, for the gardens she'll never grow. But she's also fighting, Lyra. She's been fighting for decades, waiting for someone to set her free. The neural link intensified, and suddenly, Lyra was experiencing her childhood through Marcus's enhanced perception. She saw herself as she truly was, not the perfect weapon the hegemony had created, but a survivor who'd endured unspeakable trauma while somehow retaining the capacity for growth.
Hey, this is dangerous,
she whispered, but she didn't pull away from his touch. If the hegemony discovers what you've done to me, they won't, Marcus said with quiet certainty, because you're going to help me destroy them. The words should have triggered her loyalty conditioning, flooding her system with pain and forcing her to attack. Instead, Lyra felt a surge of something she'd never experienced before: hope. The neural bond had rewritten her fundamental programming, replacing blind obedience with the possibility of choice. I don't know how, she admitted. Hey, then we'll learn together, Marcus replied. But first you need to understand what you really are. Not their weapon, but your own person. Not their creation, but your own choice. The neural field around them began to shift, taking on new patterns as their consciousness merged more completely.
Lyra felt her
Carefully constructed identity dissolving, but instead of terror, she felt liberation. Marcus's enhanced mind was showing her possibilities. She'd never imagined a future where she could be more than just a killer. The pain, she gasped as her conditioning fought against the new neural pathways. It's fighting back. I know, Marcus said, his mental presence wrapping around her like armor. But you're stronger than their programming. You've survived this long by being stronger than anything they could create. You just need to remember how to be strong for yourself. Through the neural link, Lyra felt Marcus's own memories of transformation, the experimental procedures that had enhanced his mind, the agony of having his consciousness rebuilt, the moment when he'd realized he'd become something more than human. He'd walked this path before, and now he was guiding her through it. What happens when this is over? She asked. That depends on you, Marcus replied. But whatever you choose, you won't be alone. The neural bond had reached a critical threshold. Lyra Voss stood in the center of the interrogation chamber, body racked with tremors as her genetic programming warred with her awakening consciousness. Marcus Kane watched her struggle with the patience of someone who understood the price of transformation. The pain will pass, he said, his voice carrying through both the air and their neural link. Your body is fighting the changes, but your mind is winning. Winning what? Lyra gasped, her scaled skin flushed with unnatural heat. I can feel everything they did to me, every modification, every neural pathway they rewired. How do I fight decades of conditioning? One choice at a time, Marcus replied. Right now, choose to trust me. Tomorrow, choose to trust yourself. Eventually, you'll choose to be free. The chamber's systems detected the anomalous neural patterns and began implementing emergency protocols. Sedative gas hissed from hidden vents designed to pacify dangerous prisoners. But the neural field around them neutralized the chemical agents. Marcus's enhanced consciousness, adapting their shared biology in real time. Impossible, Lyra breathed, watching the gas dissolve harmlessly around them. Okay, only impossible if you think like them, Marcus said. They see biology as fixed, Consciousness is programmable. Humans see everything as changeable, improvable. It's why we win wars we shouldn't survive. Through the neural link, Lyra felt his memories of the Sol System battle, not just the tactical brilliance, but the emotional weight of command. She experienced his grief for every ship lost, his determination to protect Earth, his willingness to sacrifice himself for others. It was the opposite of everything the hegemony had taught her about warfare. You actually cared about them, she said with wonder. Your crew, your soldiers, you grieved for every loss. That's what made me effective, Marcus replied. The hegemony creates weapons. Humanity creates warriors. There's a difference. The chamber's emergency systems escalated, deploying neural disruptors designed to sever their connection. But the bond had evolved beyond their original technology. It was no longer just a link between minds. It was a fusion of consciousness that transcended physical limitations. They're trying to separate us, Lyra said, feeling the disruptor's assault on their connection. They can't, Marcus assured her. We're not just linked anymore. We're synchronized. Two minds thinking as one, while still remaining ourselves. Implications hit her like a physical blow. The hegemony's greatest fear was the development of true collective consciousness beings, capable of sharing thought and emotion while maintaining individual identity. It was why they'd destroyed so many species, why they'd never allowed their own people to develop beyond programmed responses. This is what they were afraid of, she whispered. This is what they'll never understand, Marcus corrected. They think consciousness is about control, about domination. But true consciousness is about connection, about choosing to be part of something greater than yourself. The neural field around them began to pulse with new patterns, and Lyra felt her perception expanding. Through Marcus's enhanced senses, she could feel the entire ship around them, the crew members at their stations, the prisoners in their cells, the vast network of systems that kept them alive in the void. I can feel them, she said in amazement. Everyone on this ship, their thoughts, their emotions, their fears. Welcome to enhanced consciousness, Marcus said. But remember, feeling isn't the same as controlling. That's the mistake the hegemony made. They thought power meant domination. Real power means understanding. Lyra reached out with her newfound awareness, touching the minds of the crew members she'd terrorized for years. She felt their fear, their hatred, their desperate hope for freedom. But she also felt something else, the possibility of redemption, of choice, of change. I can free them, she realized. All of them. Yes, Marcus agreed. But first, you need to free yourself. The final chains aren't in your body or your programming. They're in your belief that you can't change. Lyra looked at him, seeing not just the man who'd transformed her, but the symbol of everything she'd been taught to destroy. Through the neural link, she felt his absolute faith in her ability to choose her own path. I choose freedom, she said, her voice carrying new strength. Hello. For myself, for my crew, for everyone the hegemony has enslaved. The neural field around them exploded outward, carrying their combined consciousness throughout the ship. And for the first time in decades, Lyra Voss felt truly alive. The neural wave cascaded through the ship's systems like wildfire. Lyra Voss felt her consciousness expanding beyond the interrogation chamber, touching every mind aboard the vessel. Through Marcus Kane's enhanced perception, she experienced the crew's thoughts, their confusion, their fear, and beneath it all, their desperate hunger for freedom. They're scared, she said, her voice carrying both through the air and their neural link. Decades of conditioning, and they're terrified of thinking for themselves. Fear is the first step toward courage, Marcus replied, his mental presence guiding her through the complex process of neural liberation. Show them it's possible. Show them you changed. The ship's commander, a brutish hegemony officer named Vrak, stormed into the interrogation chamber with a squad of elite guards. His forearms held weapons designed to disable even enhanced beings. But he stopped short when he saw the neural field surrounding them. Impossible, he snarled. Neural bonds don't form between species. It's genetically impossible. Only if you think like the hegemony, Lyra said, turning to face him. Her violet eyes blazed with power that made the guards step back involuntarily. But consciousness isn't bound by genetics. It's bound by choice. Through the neural link, she felt Marcus's tactical mind analyzing the situation. The guards were frightened, their weapons powerful but imprecise. More importantly, they were conditioned to obey authority without question, a weakness that could be exploited. "Stand down," Lyra commanded, her voice carrying new authority. "All of you." The guards hesitated, their programming warring with their instinct to obey their longtime commander. But Vrak snarled and raised his primary weapon. "You're compromised," he spat, infected by human weakness. "The hegemony will cleanse you of this contamination." "Will they?" Lyra asked, and her consciousness reached out through the neural field. She touched each guard's mind, not to control, but to show them possibilities, memories of who they'd been before the conditioning, dreams they'd abandoned, hopes they'd buried. The effect was immediate. The guards' weapons lowered as they experienced fragments of their original personalities. One of them, a young soldier whose name had been replaced with a numerical designation, began to weep. "I remember," he whispered. "I remember my mother's face." "No," Vrak roared, firing his weapon at the crying soldier. But the neural field deflected the energy burst, dispersing it harmlessly. Marcus's enhanced consciousness had analyzed the weapon's frequency and created a perfect countermeasure. "That's enough," Marcus said, stepping forward. The remaining guards found themselves unable to move, not through force but through understanding. They saw him not as an enemy, but as a liberator, someone who offered them the same choice he'd offered Lyra. "This is corruption," Vrak snarled. "The hegemony will destroy you all for this." "The hegemony is already destroying itself," Lyra replied. "Every species they've enslaved, every world they've conquered, every mind they've broken, it's all creating resistance. We're not the first to break free, we're just the first to do it consciously." Through the neural link, she felt Marcus's memories of other liberation movements throughout the galaxy. The hegemony's empire was vast but fragile, held together by fear and conditioning rather than loyalty or strength. It only took one crack to bring down the entire structure. "Free the prisoners," she commanded the guards, all of them. "And then we're going to send a message to the hegemony fleet." The guards moved to obey their newfound freedom, making them eager to extend it to others. But Vrak raised his weapon again, this time aiming at Lyra. "I'll kill you before I let you corrupt my ship," he snarled. But before he could fire, the neural field pulsed with devastating intensity. Lyra felt Marcus's consciousness merged completely with hers, their combined power focused on a single purpose. They didn't attack Vrak physically. Instead, they showed him the truth. Through the neural link, Vrak experienced every atrocity he'd committed in the hegemony's name. He felt the pain of his victims, the fear of the enslaved, the emptiness of his own existence. But more importantly, he felt the possibility of redemption. "Choose," Lyra said simply. "Death as a slave or life as a free being." Vrak stared at her for a long moment, his weapon trembling in his hands. Then slowly he lowered it. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Marcus said, "we start a revolution." The liberation of the ship was only the beginning. Lyra Voss stood on the bridge, her consciousness expanded through the neural network that now connected every freed mind aboard the vessel. Through Marcus Kane's enhanced perception, she could feel the ship's systems responding to their collective will rather than programmed commands. "The hegemony fleet is 3 hours out," reported the former guard who'd remembered his mother's face. His name was Keth, and he'd volunteered to man the sensor station. 12 dreadnoughts and a command carrier. "They're expecting a routine prisoner transfer." "They'll get one," Lyra said, her voice carrying both confidence and determination. "Just not the kind they're expecting." Through the neural link, she felt Marcus's tactical mind working through the possibilities. The hegemony fleet vastly outgunned them, but their awakened consciousness gave them advantages no traditional military force could match. They could think as one while acting as individuals, coordinate without communication, adapt without orders. "Prisoners," Marcus said, his mental presence touching hers. "How many have you freed?" "All of them," Lyra replied. 3,000 beings from 47 different species. They're scared, confused, but they're choosing to fight. The neural network pulsed with shared determination. Each freed mind added its own knowledge and abilities to the collective engineers who understood hegemony technology. Pilots who knew their ship movements, commanders who'd fought against the Empire, they were no longer just prisoners. They were an army of the awakened. The weapon systems are adapting, Keth reported with wonder. They're responding to our thoughts, enhancing themselves based on our collective knowledge. It was true. The ship's technology was evolving in real time, guided by the neural network's shared consciousness.
Oh.
Weapons designed for suppression became tools of liberation. Sensors meant for hunting became instruments of protection. The entire vessel was transforming into something the hegemony had never imagined. This is what they feared, Lyra said, feeling the truth of it through the neural link. Not just rebellion, but evolution. Consciousness freed from their limitations, and it's spreading, Marcus added. Through their enhanced perception, they could feel other awakenings throughout the galaxy. The neural wave they'd initiated was propagating through quantum communication channels, touching other ships, other worlds, other enslaved minds. The bridge's main display showed the approaching fleet, but it also showed something else: subtle changes in the enemy ship's formations, hesitations in their movements, inconsistencies in their communication patterns. The awakening was reaching them too. Commander Vrock approached them, his former brutality replaced by uncertain hope. I've established contact with the fleet. They're requesting status updates. Give them one, Lyra said, her consciousness reaching out through the communication system. Tell them exactly what's happening. The neural network focused its power through the communication array, sending not just words but direct consciousness itself. The message that reached the hegemony fleet was unlike anything they'd ever received: a pure transmission of awakened thought, carrying the possibility of freedom to every mind capable of receiving it. This is Commander Lyra Voss, she broadcast, her voice carrying across space. I am no longer your weapon. I am no longer your slave. I am free, and I offer that freedom to anyone willing to choose it. The response was immediate and chaotic. Several ships in the fleet began showing signs of internal conflict as their crews experienced the neural transmission. Some officers tried to maintain order through violence, while others found themselves questioning orders they'd never dared to challenge. They're fighting themselves, Keth reported. 3 ships have gone dark, and 2 more are showing massive power fluctuations. The awakening is spreading faster than we anticipated, Marcus said, his enhanced consciousness analyzing the quantum patterns. The neural network is becoming self-sustaining. Every mind that awakens adds to its power. But they'll try to stop us, Lyra said, feeling the familiar cold determination of her former masters. The Hegemony Council will authorize extreme measures. Let them try, Marcus replied. They're fighting the wrong war. They think this is about territory, about resources, about control, but it's really about consciousness itself. Consciousness always finds a way. The neural network pulsed with shared purpose as the fleet approached. They were no longer just a single ship facing overwhelming odds. They were the seed of a new form of existence, one that could spread across the galaxy and beyond. All stations report ready, Vrack announced. Weapons charged, defenses at maximum, and the neural network is stable. Then let's show them what freedom looks like, Lyra said, her consciousness merging completely with the ship's systems. Through the neural link, she felt every awakened mind aboard the vessel joining with her. Their combined will focused on a single purpose. The hegemony fleet approached like a wall of death, or massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons designed to crack planets, but Lyra Voss felt no fear. It's through the neural network. She experienced the battle through 1,000 different perspectives, every freed mind aboard her ship, contributing to a collective tactical awareness that transcended individual limitations. They're demanding our surrender, Keth reported from the sensor station. Admiral Zarian is personally commanding the fleet. He's threatening to activate the neural purge protocols. Marcus Kane's enhanced consciousness touched hers through the neural link. He's bluffing. Neural purge would kill every enslaved mind in the fleet. Even the hegemony isn't that desperate. Yes, they are, Lyra replied, feeling the cold truth of it. They'd rather rule over corpses than risk losing control. The neural network carried her certainty to every awakened mind aboard the ship. 3,000 beings from 47 species, all sharing the same realization they were fighting for the very concept of free will. The hegemony would destroy consciousness itself, rather than allow it to evolve beyond their control. Incoming transmission from the flagship, Vrak announced. His forearms worked the communication console with newfound purpose. Admiral Zarian wants to negotiate. Put him through, Lyra commanded. The main display flickered to life, showing the Admiral's grotesque form, like all hegemony command staff. He'd been surgically modified beyond recognition, more machine than flesh, more weapon than being. Commander Voss. Zarian's voice carried the mechanical precision of artificial vocal cords. You will surrender. Yourself and the human prisoner immediately. This contamination will be cleansed from the fleet. There is no contamination, Lyra replied, her consciousness reaching out through the communication channel. There is only choice, the choice to be free. Freedom is chaos, Zarian snarled. The hegemony brings order, purpose, meaning. Without our guidance, lesser species would destroy themselves. Would they? Through the neural link, Lyra shared her memories of the awakening, the joy of choice, the power of connection, the hope of transformation. Or would they grow into something greater than you can imagine? The Admiral's cybernetic implants sparked as the neural transmission reached him. For a moment, his artificial composure cracked, revealing something almost like fear. Possible. My implants are shielded against neural intrusion. This isn't intrusion, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the link. This is invitation. The offer of something you've never experienced, authentic existence. Enough. Zarian's image dissolved as he severed the connection. All units target the contaminated vessel. Fire at will. The hegemony fleet opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. But the neural network was ready. Through their collective consciousness, the awakened minds aboard Lyra's ship perceived the immense attack patterns, calculated trajectories, responded with impossible precision. The ship's defensive systems had evolved beyond their original specifications. Shield generators pulsed with neural energy, creating barriers that didn't just deflect energy, but absorbed and redirected it. Weapon arrays fired with the coordinated precision of a collective mind, each shot calculated to maximum effect. Direct hits on 3 dreadnoughts, Keth reported with amazement. Our weapons are somehow penetrating their armor. The neural network is adapting their technology in real time, Marcus explained. Every attack teaches us something new about their defenses. But the real battle wasn't being fought with weapons. Through the quantum communication channels, the neural network was spreading to the attacking fleet. Every ship that fired upon them carried the seeds of their own awakening. As crew members began to question their orders, their purpose, their very existence, chaos in the enemy fleet, Vrak announced. 2 dreadnoughts are reporting mutinies, and a third has gone completely dark. The awakening is accelerating, Lyra said, feeling the truth of it through the neural link. Every mind that breaks free adds to the network's power. Through her enhanced perception, she could feel the panic spreading through the hegemony command structure. They were facing something they'd never encountered, not just rebellion, but evolution. The very concept of consciousness was changing, growing beyond their ability to control or understand. All remaining units implement Protocol Omega. Zarian's voice crackled through intercepted communications. Destroy everything. Leave no trace of the contamination. Protocol Omega, Marcus said grimly. Fleet-wide neural purge. They're going to kill every enslaved mind in the fleet, rather than risk the awakening spreading? Then we stop them, Lyra replied, her consciousness merging with the ship's systems. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who hasn't had the chance to choose. The neural network pulsed with shared determination. 3,000 awakened minds focused their combined will on a single purpose, saving those who couldn't save themselves. The ship leaped forward, no longer bound by the limitations of its original design. The hegemony flagship's neural purge systems began their deadly countdown. Lyra Voss felt the approaching execution of millions of enslaved minds like a physical blow to her consciousness. Through the neural network, every awakened being aboard her ship shared her anguish and her determination to prevent it. 30 seconds to purge activation, Keth reported, his voice tight with controlled panic. The weapon is designed to overload neural implants across the entire fleet. Then we give them something else to think about, Marcus Kane said, his enhanced consciousness merging with the ship's systems. Through the neural link, Lyra felt his tactical mind working at superhuman speed, calculating probabilities and possibilities. The cascade effect, she realized, understanding his plan instantly. If we can create a massive neural pulse at the moment of purge activation, the awakening will spread faster than they can kill it, Marcus finished. But we'll need to overload our own systems to generate that much power. Through the neural network, 3,000 awakened minds considered the choice. They could save themselves, retreat to the outer systems, and live as free beings. Or they could sacrifice themselves to liberate millions of others. The decision was unanimous. Do it, Lyra said, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire ship. All power to the neural array, full cascade activation. The ship's systems began to sing with dangerous harmonics as every available power source fed into the neural network. The awakened minds aboard the vessel felt their consciousness expanding beyond physical limitations, becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. 10 seconds to purge, Vrak announced, his voice carrying strange serenity. All systems are ready? Then let's show them what freedom looks like, Lyra said, her awareness touching every corner of the ship. Every mind in the network, every soul ready to sacrifice itself for the possibility of liberation. The purge activated across the hegemony fleet, sending death through neural implants and control systems. But at the exact moment of activation, Lyra's ship unleashed the cascade wave of pure consciousness that propagated through quantum space faster than the speed of light. The collision between death and awakening created something unprecedented. Instead of destroying the enslaved minds, the neural purge became a catalyst for transformation. Every being touched by the cascade experienced instant liberation. Their consciousness expanded and connected to the growing network. Impossible. Admiral Zirian's voice crackled through the communication system. The purge is supposed to kill them, not? His words cut off as the cascade reached the flagship. Through the neural link, Lyra felt the Admiral's consciousness awakening, his artificial implants failing as his original mind reasserted itself. For the first time in decades, he remembered who he'd been before the hegemony's modifications. I remember, he whispered, his voice human again. I remember my name. I remember my world. I remember the choice they took from me. The cascade wave expanded beyond the immediate fleet, racing through quantum communication channels that connected every hegemony installation across the galaxy. Lyra Voss felt each new awakening like a star being born in her consciousness. Through the neural network, she experienced the liberation of entire worlds simultaneously. The cascade is reaching the core systems, Marcus Kane reported, his enhanced consciousness tracking the wave's progress. Billions of minds are awakening every second. Through the neural link, Lyra felt the moment when the hegemony's capital world experienced the cascade. The ruling council, enhanced beings who'd sacrificed their humanity for power, suddenly remembered what they'd lost. Their screams of anguish echoed across the network as they experienced the pain of every being they'd enslaved. They're fighting it, she said, feeling the desperate resistance of those who'd built their identity on domination. Some minds are too damaged by the conditioning to accept freedom. Then we help them, Marcus replied, his consciousness reaching out through the network. No one is beyond redemption. Even they deserve the chance to choose. The neural network pulsed with compassion, carrying healing energy to the most damaged minds. Lyra felt former hegemony leaders experiencing mercy for the first time in centuries, their artificial enhancements failing as their organic consciousness reasserted itself. The transformation is accelerating, Keth announced from his station. Every world, every ship, every installation is reporting complete neural liberation. The hegemony's control structure is collapsing. But the cascade was doing more than just freeing enslaved minds. It was creating something entirely new. Galactic consciousness that maintained individual identity while enabling unprecedented cooperation. Species that had been enemies for millennia were suddenly sharing knowledge, resources, and hope. "We're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy," Verac reported, his voice filled with wonder. "Worlds that have been silent for centuries are suddenly broadcasting. They're sharing art, music, poetry, everything the hegemony suppressed." Through the neural network, Lyra experienced the renaissance of galactic civilization. The rigid uniformity of the hegemony was being replaced by beautiful diversity. Each species was rediscovering its unique culture while contributing to the collective good. "The quantum resonance is stabilizing," Marcus observed, his consciousness analyzing the network's patterns. "The cascade is becoming self-sustaining. We've created a permanent galactic neural network." "A network of choice," Lyra added, feeling the distinction that made all the difference. "No one is forced to join. No one is compelled to stay. Everyone who chooses to participate gains access to the combined knowledge and wisdom of the entire galaxy." The implications were staggering. Scientific discoveries that would have taken centuries could now be achieved in days. Art forms that had been lost forever were being recreated through shared memory. The very concept of war was becoming obsolete as beings learned to resolve conflicts through direct consciousness sharing. "What have we done?" Lyra asked, her awareness encompassing the transformed galaxy. "We've given them what humanity has always given the universe," Marcus replied, his mental presence warm with satisfaction. "The gift of possibility. The knowledge that things can always be better than they are." 1 year after the Great Awakening, Lyra Voss stood on the observation deck of what had once been the hegemony's greatest prison ship. Now it served as a mobile hospital, carrying healing throughout the galaxy. Through the neural network, she felt the joy of billions of beings who'd learned to live freely. "The integration is complete," Marcus Kane said, his consciousness touching hers through the quantum link. Though they'd transcended their physical forms, they'd chosen to maintain individual avatars for those who found comfort in familiar faces. "Not complete," Lyra corrected gently. "Evolving. It will always be evolving. That's what makes it beautiful." Through the network, she felt the pulse of galactic civilization. Former slave worlds were becoming centers of learning and culture. Species that had been on the brink of extinction were flourishing again. The galaxy was healing from millennia of oppression. "The Council of Voices has made its decision," Keth reported. The former guard had become a coordinator for the new Galactic Government, a voluntary association of free minds that made decisions through consensus rather than force. "About the remaining hegemony loyalists?" Lyra asked. "Rehabilitation, not punishment," Keth replied. "They've agreed to neural therapy to help them overcome their conditioning. Some are already showing signs of recovery." It was the human way to see potential for redemption, even in former enemies. The neural network had carried this philosophy throughout the galaxy, transforming not just how beings thought, but how they treated each other. "Any word from the Outer Rim?" Marcus asked. "The exploration fleets are reporting new civilizations beyond former hegemony space," Frack announced. The former commander had become an ambassador, carrying the offer of voluntary network connection to species that had hidden from the hegemony for generations. They're cautious but interested. The cascade effect is inspiring curiosity rather than fear. Through the neural link, Lyra felt the expanding wave of consciousness reaching toward the galactic edge. The network wasn't conquering new territory, it was offering partnership to anyone who chose to join. The galaxy was becoming something unprecedented. A truly voluntary collective of free minds. "The children are ready," a new voice announced. It belonged to one of the network's most precious achievements, beings born after the awakening who'd never known slavery or oppression. They were growing up with access to the collective knowledge while maintaining their individual creativity. "Show us," Lyra said, her consciousness reaching out to touch the young minds. Through the network, she experienced a school on a former hegemony world. Children from dozens of species were learning together, their natural curiosity enhanced by access to the galaxy's collected wisdom. They were asking questions that had never occurred to their elders, making connections that transcended species boundaries. "They're going to surpass us," Marcus observed with deep satisfaction. "They're going to create things we can't even imagine." "That's the point," Lyra replied. "That's what freedom means. The right to become something greater than." What came before? The neural network pulsed with shared joy as the children presented their project, a new form of art that combined the sensory capabilities of multiple species. It was beautiful, impossible, and entirely their own creation. The humans were right, Admiral Zarian said, his voice carrying through the network. The former hegemony leader had become one of the network's most dedicated advocates. Using his knowledge of oppression to help others heal, consciousness isn't about control, it's about connection. Not just the humans, Lyra corrected. Every species that chose freedom. Every mind that refused to accept limitations. Every being that dared to believe in something better. Through the quantum link, she felt Marcus's consciousness merge with hers in a moment of perfect understanding. They'd started this journey as enemies, become allies, then partners. Finally something new, two aspects of a larger consciousness that had helped birth a new form of galactic civilization. "So what now?" Marcus asked. "Now we keep growing," Lyra replied. "We keep learning. We keep reaching out to new minds, new species, new possibilities. The network isn't an ending, it's a beginning." The neural network pulsed with agreement from billions of awakened minds. They'd broken the chains of the hegemony, but more importantly, they'd proven that consciousness could evolve beyond its limitations. The galaxy was free, and in that freedom, it was becoming something magnificent. "The cascade continues," Lyra said, her awareness expanding to encompass the entire galactic network. Not as a weapon, but as a gift. The gift of choice, the gift of connection, the gift of infinite possibility. Through the quantum link, she felt the pulse of galactic civilization, diverse, chaotic, beautiful, and free. It was everything that hegemony had tried to prevent, and everything she'd never dared to dream possible. The revolution was complete. The awakening had begun, and in the vast network of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy, two minds that had found each other in the darkness continued their eternal dance, no longer captor and prisoner, no longer interrogator and subject, but partners in the greatest adventure of all, the ongoing evolution of consciousness itself. The galaxy was free. The future was unlimited. And somewhere in the quantum foam of interconnected minds, Lyra Voss and Marcus Kane smiled at what they'd helped create, a universe where every being could choose to be more than they'd ever imagined possible.